Tales of Luminaria came as a bit of a surprise to many people, myself included. It was announced just over a year after the worldwide release of the previous Tales mobile game, Crestoria, which had taken several years to release alone, and was coming hot on the heels of Tales of Arise, the first new mothership title in 5 years. What's more, this would be unlike every other Tales mobile game in that it would only feature new characters telling an original story with a full English dub, and it would be a real-time action game in portrait orientation. The game's current state is only a tiny fraction of what has been promised to be an epic, sweeping story from the perspective of 21 different characters.
No need to rush. You're almost there.
At launch, Luminaria contains 7 episodes, a term taken so literally that there's an opening and ending song for each one, so only a third of the cast is playable thus far. I'll be judging this game based on what it was on launch day, but developers have already stated that they are working on fixing several issues I'm bringing up here. The story begins with Leo, a young man with strong protagonist energy. Off-screen, he's just rescued a man in need from some monsters, and the encounter with those beasts is the combat tutorial. Fighting is necessarily simple but can feel clunky. There are 4 touchscreen buttons, 1 for attack and up to 3 that can charge up for a larger strike or buffs based on the character and their equipped weapons. The attack button is also tied to movement as it's where the virtual analog stick is centered, meaning you can't attack and move at the same time. A gradual slide from the button will make the on-screen character run, but a faster slide will have them perform a dodge maneuver in whichever direction you flick. Dodges grant invincibility frames, but I frequently felt like I was spending more time dodging than attacking, as the game likes to throw tons of enemies that will all target with several telegraphed attacks. Often I didn't feel like the telegraphs were long enough for me to stop attacking and dodge out of the way, meaning that I was taking a frustrating amount of unnecessary punishment, particularly for the beginning of an action game. Thankfully, it does seem that there was consideration given to how each character would have to control. For example, Celia, the first ranged attacker, can't do much at close range, but her levels are built around her sniping her enemies, and well-timed arrows will pierce additional enemies. The characters that participate in more extensive Muso-style battles typically have more expansive areas of effect. Still, combat feels a little brain-dead since you'll largely just be mashing a single button without the intricate combos that Tales titles are known for, but it mostly functions. Unfortunately, here's where I have to start hoping that more thought is put into this title as it evolves. One of the most significant selling points of Tales of Luminaria was its full English dub, starring a vast stable of very well-known voice actors. However, I found the dub to be of pretty mediocre quality, as even the most talented voice actors, especially Aaron Dismuke as Leo, turn in standard first-take performances. The only exception I've found thus far is J. Michael Tatum as the menacing August. At no point did I feel like any 2 characters in a scene were conversing together, and what's worse is you can't switch to the Japanese voice track to avoid this. Regardless of whether you're playing the Japanese or global version of the title, they both have entirely separate voice tracks that can't be switched around, so if you want to be able to read the game's text and you don't speak English, you're stuck with the dub. The cutscenes are also somewhat questionable. The pre-rendered ones with more action animation look fine, but any cutscene where 2 or more characters are simply talking looks robotic, as though any animation would have been too expensive. The fact that there will always be a brief black loading screen before them takes you even further out of the experience and accentuates the problem. I'm also not a particular fan of any of the characters shown thus far outside of anti-villain August. Too much of the extensive cast feel more like bog-standard series of tropes rather than actual people, and the series' trademark ability to introduce nuance to character archetypes simply isn't here yet. In its current state, Tales of Luminaria is serving you a basic shonen anime tale with the potential to go somewhere interesting. The game probably could have benefited from a beta period where the development team could have heard and addressed concerns before launch, but the fact that they're listening and responding to feedback already is a good sign, though you only get one first impression. And while the scope of this project for its platform is notably impressive, it's just not much to write home about right now. Tales of Luminaria will be getting weekly episode updates, which is sorely needed because of the lack of launch content, but ultimately it needs more polish and genuine care to shine as best as it can. Noisy Pixel is giving Tales of Luminaria a 6.5 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching. Please read the full review at noisypixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers working hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all of our future content.
Noisy Pixel.